Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
Hello, welcome to this week's Painting of the Week. I'm Phil.
And I'm Laura.
And today we are talking about Portrait of Pope Innocent X by Diego Velázquez. And for those of you who have access to a computer or a laptop, iPhone, whatever, if you go to the Seventh Art Productions website and click on the Painting of the Week, you'll be able to access the painting and you can look at the painting while we natter about it. The reason that I've chosen this one this week is because last week I was actually fortunate enough to be in Rome and standing in front of this painting in real life. So it seemed an appropriate one to talk about. Obviously, with COVID, there's been so much less traveling. So it was great to get to Rome, and I saw a lot of artwork, and this is one that I have seen before and always stands out to me. So, Diego Velázquez is one of the great Spanish artists, obviously up there with Goya and El Greco. This was a portrait he did in 1650 of the Pope, obviously. And it is now in a wonderful palace, which is known as the Galleria Doria Pamphili in Rome. Rome, on this most recent trip, I decided that Rome is surely the most beautiful city in the world. I'm sure next time I go to Paris, I'll feel that about Paris or
Madrid.
But Rome is utterly extraordinary. And on this particular trip, I went to see a lot of art, and I went into a lot of these old palaces, the Barberini, the Borghese, and it's just to name but two. And it's extraordinary. There was this period in the, around the 1500s and 1600s when there was this concerted effort to rebuild Rome as the center of a Christian empire. And alongside the theology, integral to the theology perhaps, was a very determined pan-European organization collecting taxes. So there's a lot of money coming into Rome. And people built these extraordinary palaces, extraordinary churches. And in both cases, they filled them with art. And that, as an aside, it kind of fascinates me. I think that if you were to interview our most recent, let's say the last 30 years, when I've been really cognizant of our British government, if you were to talk to our prime ministers and even our ministers of culture, and asked them how many operas did you actually go to and how many paintings, how many times did you go to an exhibition? Have you ever commissioned a painting? I think we'd be quite shocked at how little interest they pay. Whereas at this time in history, these guys, these cardinals and these dukes and, whatever, were buying, exchanging, hoarding, commissioning. Art was extremely important. And indeed, if you want to take it back even further, part of this is because they're trying to recreate a Christian empire on the basis of what they perceived and understood to have been the Roman Empire. And the importance of art to the Romans, the ancient Romans, was huge. And again, something that I think we could learn from in this country today.
It's just funny you say that, because it is actually quite amusing that we don't actually seem to place that much importance on art.
No, and
I haven't seen an interview with any of our politicians or anyone that says what art galleries you go to. It'd be good.
I mean, we used to, when we did a lot of television art programs, and we did a lot, we would often, based on the big exhibitions, let's say the National or the Tate, we would have, when the film was finished and in the week before it was being screened, we would have a breakfast event at, say, the National Gallery.
Lovely.
Where an hour before the gallery opens, we would invite the hoi polloi to come, have the croissant, coffee and stuff.
And then not the bacon, not bacon and sausages then?
No bacon and sausages. No fried food. But then with our presenter, Tim Marlowe, who's not only a fantastic presenter, but a fantastic kind of guide, they would then have this privileged access to a Rembrandt, to a Goya, to whatever the exhibition was, with Tim taking them round in 50 minutes, giving them a guided tour. And it constantly struck me how few members of Parliament came. There was the occasional one. And they may be busy, they may not be busy, but, to come at 8:30 in the morning and spend 50 minutes looking through, the portraits of Goya or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So, and personally, of course, being a great advocate for art, I think it shows in the way they behave and the way they legislate that they are disconnected from great music, great opera, great art in the way that I perceive them to be. Now, that's not to say that I can really offer a view on Pope Innocent X.
I've got a cup of tea, I hope everyone knows. I haven't got a croissant, I haven't got a cup of tea. Because obviously for me, this is the first time I've even seen this painting.
But, he was, at this time, one of the most powerful men in the world. And Velázquez has been, commissioned to paint his portrait. It is technically astounding. And again, this is a good moment to maybe pause us and just look at the painting. And again, it's extraordinary to think that this starts as just a white piece of, just a piece of white canvas.
And he's only used 3 colours. Actually, I have to say, obviously, this is the first time I've seen this painting. And then as I looked it up, they said, this is potentially one of the best portrait paintings ever.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Well, better have a really good look at this then. And then, so did you think that when you stood in front of it? Is it big?
It's Francis Bacon, isn't it, that says it's one of the greatest portraits?
I don't know. No, I don't know who said that.
Made.
I don't know about that.
And I know that Francis Bacon, he became obsessed by this painting.
Yes. Well, that's what I was telling you, because when I looked it up, I tried to go for a book first. Yeah. Because I do think I like to try and I've got this book from a charity shop, which, like I said to you, what makes great art? 80 masterpieces. And I looked up Velasquez and he wasn't even in there. So I thought, it's obviously not a very good book. But the Francis Bacon study of
300 years later.
Yes, 1953 is in there. Well, and it's definitely not, there's not a lot of similarities to it, except I don't think he quite likes.
Well, I know which one I'd have in my front room, I must be honest, but that's just me. But Bacon said that this portrait haunts me and opens up all sorts of feelings and areas of imagination, even with me. What amazes me about this painting, and again, it's almost like witchcraft. It is technically really something else, and yet you're not seeing a 2D flat white canvas anymore. You are seeing a 3-dimensional human being sitting in a chair, and Velázquez has chosen to depict him in a certain way which evokes and displays certain emotions. Look at his face. Let's start with his face. What does that face? How do you? I mean, look at that face and think, how is that man feeling? I mean, and then
I think he feels quite confident in himself. Do you think so?
I think he looks kind of like he's just like, get on with it. I've got a lot to do.
Okay. You think that?
I think there's an irritation there.
Yes, okay.
He's certainly confident. I mean, he's the Pope.
That's a point.
And,
I forgot about that.
He's got as much power as any man could possibly want.
Yeah. He's got the top job. Yeah. So he should be confident, I'm assuming, yes.
But there's a humanity about him, isn't there? I mean, these were ordinary human beings that had worked their way up and, had made themselves or had been voted, elected Pope.
I don't know, it looks a little bit he's a little bit smug. Is that not the wrong word to use? I don't know. I'm not sure this is my favourite painting, Phil.
No, that's fine. That's good.
Which is quite good, isn't it?
And normally, a portrait of a Pope would not be, broadly speaking, if you said, let's go and have a look at some portraits of popes, not necessarily going to get me out of my chair.
I can see what you're saying about technically.
Yeah, but look, don't you think?
He's definitely, the way he captures his face.
But don't you think he's on the verge of standing there? So that's it, I'm gone
done.
now.
Maybe he's just not a very patient man then.
No, he seems somewhat reluctant to be there. He's probably been told by an aide, look, you've got to have your portrait done. And Velázquez is one of the great Spanish painters. So just,
And I imagine that took a bit of time.
Give him an hour.
An hour.
But there's like, well, how much time are you talking? I mean, it's like the Queen. The Queen will only sit.
She wouldn't sit there for too long, would she, I suppose?
But there's a quizzical look in his eye. He's staring straight at the painter.
Yeah.
And it's almost like there is that. I think there's that sense of look, and he's even got something in his hand. Look, I've got to go and sort this out. Are you finished yet? But the thing that's so extraordinary is, imagine being a painter and trying to capture that.
Yeah. He's definitely he's got Photoshop down to a fine art in the back in the day, because he really, everyone, all the work I've just done is just technically incredible. So he obviously captures people so well. In actual fact, wouldn't you love it if he was on National Portrait Artist of the Year on Sky Arts? They do that programme. Wouldn't it be fabulous to get somebody like that on that programme and no one know and see if they won?
Velázquez.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant.
So, Doreen from Dorking, that was a great portrait. Now, next up, we've got Diego from Madrid.
Yeah, but say he lost.
I know.
And they're saying he's the best.
I've often thought that, actually, where if you into those kind of shows, if you put a world famous photographer or a world famous singer or
God, there's a program like that, Phil. It'd be so good. Okay, sorry.
But back to Diego.
Back to it.
So now Velázquez, he's no fool, and he's painting the Pope here. So we know that he's softened him around the edges. So how old do you think this guy is?
Now I've got to be careful. Well, he's a Pope. Let me go 60. No, he's got to be a bit older, isn't he? 68.
Oh, not bad. 76.
Okay.
And various accounts described him as being quite ugly. I
wouldn't say he's ugly.
Nothing ugly about him there.
I'm always really careful with the word ugly anyway.
Yes, true.
There is no ugly.
Yeah, fair
necessarily enough. To look at. I go with personality on that one.
Okay, that's a fair point.
That's me.
I sometimes you know that the painter and the sitter have a rapport, and you can see that in the painting. And sometimes you know that there is a respectful distance.
Oh, okay.
Now, the Spanish, Goya and Velázquez are well known for being quite honest with their portraits and being part of the Spanish court, and perhaps almost painting as though they were taking liberties. Frankly, it almost seems you think, look at Philip's chin. How did he get away with painting such a big chin? But they do get away with it. I think that here the painting is slightly more cautious.
Yeah.
And
I don't think you don't want. I don't think you want to upset him.
But he's still captured. And again, he might only have had a brief period, but he captures so many things that, as I say, that sense of I'm off, that sense of, I don't know, there's some vanity there, some pomposity. Maybe there's a slight smile on his lips. I'm not sure.
I think there might be now. Now I've started to really look at it.
But the eyes don't look like they're smiling, do they?
Yeah.
And again, you mentioned earlier on about the colours. It's a very limited palette.
Well, when I read up, they said three colours: red, white, and gold.
Red, white, and gold.
Didn't seem to suggest there was any other ones at all.
So very lush reds. Look at those velvet curtains. The chair that he's sitting, the throne that he's sitting on, beautiful. I mean, it's just so solid, and that's all you need to know about his position, frankly.
Yeah. He's absolutely, and I do love his red cape actually. And again, actually, what is the white? Yeah, the brushstrokes on that white sort of gown. What's that fabric around the bottom here? Sort of looks a bit. Yeah, I wonder what that is.
Well, this kind of. I mean, again, he's been very clever, and part of the three-dimensionality of it is that the nearer physically that the sitter is, the Pope is, the brighter it is.
Yeah.
So the background, you obviously can't just have one block of red. So, there are actually kind of shades of red. But as each fold gets slightly nearer to us, you can see where the folds are.
Yeah.
And it's slightly lighter, and then there's just a little touch of white, but not bright white. It's kind of just lightening the red a little bit, just on the edge of the fold. Then you come to his face and the top half of his body. Again, it's brighter, but it's not bright white. But then when you get to his lower half of his body, that white is coming straight at us. And it just makes things feel like they're almost coming out of the plane and into our space.
So when you saw this painting last week.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, you've seen it before anyway. Do you really love it?
Yeah. And actually, part of it is interesting. Part of it, one has to say, is the way in which it's presented. I mean, I've been to see masterpieces where they're just on the wall, not very well lit.
Right.
In fact, Rome's a bit guilty of this. Some of those palaces I just mentioned, actually the lighting of and in Naples too, the lighting's very poor.
Right, okay.
This one, they know at the Galleria Doria Pamphili, they know this is a great painting.
Okay. Yeah.
So it has its own room.
Oh, right.
And it's a dark room, and it's well lit. So that also amplifies the sense of masterpiece, the sense of icon.
Yeah, definitely. If you've got your own room.
But when you go into that darkened room, and this is basically all that's in there, all that's lit, it is impressive. And if you get close to it, it becomes a bit blurry, and step away from it, and all of a sudden, and we talked about this in another Painting of the Week podcast, talk about pointillism and using points of colour. That sense of everything comes together at about 2 meters away.
Yes, yes, they were saying that about the chair and about the brushstrokes on the gold, which when you step back, it totally looks like metal.
And bear in mind, this is a formal portrait, so he's taking a creative risk here. I mean, on that, the what he's wearing, the lower half of what he's wearing, it's called an alb, A-L-B.
Ah, okay.
And that cascade of kind of lace and cotton and that's it's almost like, Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Quite unlike, other formal portraits. Interesting though. I'll tell you what it reminds me of. It was about 330 years later, but in my school they had the portraits of the headmasters.
Oh, right.
And it was quite interesting. There too, the earlier ones from like the 1930s, 1940s were very formal, and they were trying to be as photorealistic as they could be. They're trying to be look like the actual person sitting in a chair or standing or whatever. And actually, as we came into the 60s and 70s, I remember standing in assembly and looking at these portraits, they start to become a bit freer in the brushstroke and a bit more, you can't really call this impressionistic, but a bit more like this. Okay.
They weren't wearing white lacy dresses though.
No, they weren't. But they were sitting on their own thrones.
Okay.
My headmaster was quite a short man. Mm. And if you got called to the headmaster's office, and I admit that I did from time to time.
Oh, I love this, Phil. Come on. It's so good.
His chair was deliberately set to high so that he was looking down on you rather than you looking down on him.
Oh, okay.
I remember that. He always had to jump down off the chair when he stood up.
Like in Shrek, Lord Farquhar.
Yeah.
I love him.
I love Shrek.
And I love Lord Farquhar. We have to... Okay, so do you know if Pope Innocent actually did like this painting after he'd done it? Or do we not know?
Well, we do know that it was Pope Innocent X's desire to be painted by Velázquez.
Oh.
We do know that the portrait was shown shortly after completion in the Pantheon in Rome, which is one of the greatest buildings on the planet.
Right.
Built by the Romans in the 1st century AD, time of Augustus, a guy called Agrippa. Anyway, the largest concrete dome until the building of the Paris Opera in the 20th century. Remains to this day utterly extraordinary. Raphael's tomb is in there.
Well, I've got to go to Rome. I haven't been to Rome.
Rome, definitely.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we start putting advertising on these podcasts and the money starts flooding in, get yourself off to Rome.
I'm going to go on a train. I fancy doing the train to Rome.
Brilliant.
Well, as it goes, I'm going to Liverpool next weekend, and I've never been there either.
There you go.
So
ticking them off one by one. Rome's.
Oh, I really, really, really want to go. Fantastic. My dad, when he was younger, he went on a little trip around Italy in a Fiat 500 with his friends. He never, ever stopped talking about the Trevi Fountain and the Amalfi Coast. So that was basically where we were. So Rome is definitely on my list. And I've got to go and do that for my dad.
Oh, well, you definitely won't be disappointed.
No.
Yeah, I have to go back to Rome too. Maybe we could do a podcast from Rome.
Yeah. Podcast train. Oh, amazing. Can you imagine?
I'm
exhausted, Phil. Can you imagine those paintings?
Oh, yeah.
I'd have to look every single one up.
When this was shown at the Pantheon, though, there was one critic who dismissed the rest of the art as mere art, but called this work truth. Mm-hmm. And I think there are some paintings which just connect with you. And I know this isn't one for you, but...
Well, I can see how amazing it is. But he did also do, didn't he, the Rokeby Venus?
Yeah.
Which is really, really famous.
Yeah.
And obviously I think a lot of people discuss that now as well. So, I think technically, obviously I can see how amazing they are. But I just wondered why people write, he's the best portrait artist or the best portrait artist. I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell, except the fact that they are the character that he brings out of the people. You can we could sit and discuss it all day, what that man was like.
We can, but it's quite interesting that the Pope, when he saw it, his comment was, "È troppo vero." It's too true. It was too. And it's interesting, isn't it, with photographs? We're all snapped and take selfies, endlessly.
Yes.
I don't know how often I look at a photograph that's taken of me and think, yeah, that's caught me.
Oh, no.
But occasionally I think, that's, and it's probably those ones where you're caught a little bit off guard. You're not even aware the picture's been taken.
Yeah. I'm not so good at selfies. I almost mess them up, but yeah. But there's plenty that you look at and you're like, oh, I'm going to delete that one or delete that one. But yeah, don't want to upset him though, I don't think. I really don't. I think, yeah. I wonder if he changed it a little bit because he said that.
No, he wouldn't. No, I don't think so. Velázquez then, he stayed in Rome. He was the court painter in Madrid. Philip the Fourth. He stayed in Rome, fathered a child called Antonio. Don't know what happened to him. And probably would have stayed there longer, but, being a court painter, he had to do what he was told, and he was summoned back to Spain.
I read somewhere that at some stage, Philip IV, Peter Paul Rubens came and stayed at his palace, and they thought they might be a bit competitive, but they actually got quite good friends.
In Madrid?
Yeah, it was quite nice. So that he was there for 9 months at the court, and they thought they could get a bit competitive with each other, but actually they seemed to get on, which was quite nice.
That's interesting, because Rubens is an interesting chap. He's in Rubens.
Well, we might have to cut this bit out.
No, not necessarily. Well, no, because Rubens
That's what I read. 1628. Peter Paul Rubens stayed at the court for 9 months, and they actually got on very well.
Rubens is also comes to Rome when Caravaggio's painting.
Caravaggio, because you said, didn't you?
He was very influenced by and impressed by Caravaggio, and in fact did
some copies. Did you say he did
some copies? And they're quite important copies. So I'm just wondering. I'm just going to look up now how long Rubens lived for.
Well, maybe I've got it wrong, because a lot of the things I do read, and unfortunately you have to get it off the internet, which sometimes is incorrect.
Yeah.
But I thought it was quite nice that they got on.
Well, it must have been. Yeah, Rubens dies in 1640, so it must have been before he does his painting. So he's come to Madrid while Velázquez's making his way.
Yeah, 1628. I wrote it down.
Oh, sorry, you did say 1628. Yeah, okay.
Well, that's what I wrote down. So I thought it was quite nice. You know me, I like things like that.
Yeah. Well, and again, that is interesting because there's no internet. Obviously, in those days, there's no television, there's no video, there's no photographs. So, how does a painter in Spain learn from what's happening in Rome, or learn what's happening, in The Hague or Amsterdam?
Yeah.
Well, either through some form of copy, or through travelling and seeing it for themselves, or if the artists themselves then came. So Rubens is interesting because not only is he a great artist, not my favourite, but he's a great artist nevertheless. But he went to Italy and he mixed with the artists, and he would have told them, and he then did copies, and he would maybe have some of those copies with him when he then goes somewhere else. So he's almost like a conduit for the development of art history, moving from the Netherlands to Italy to Spain, or to Spain then to Italy. So he would have talked, no doubt, to Velázquez about Caravaggio.
Yeah. It's funny you saying about, you think about when we travel now with our little suitcases, and they would have been travelling about them with all these copies and paintings. It's quite something.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, it'd be interesting to know whether they kind of had little, if they took copies with them.
Well, maybe somebody knows about this, and maybe they could write and let us know or tell us.
Yeah.
Because as always, We bring up more questions than answers.
Info? No, I know that. No, come on.
I don't know.
You've given more answers than questions today.
Today, yes. I'm definitely getting a bit more knowledgeable.
But info at seventh-art.com is the place people want to send us any comments or suggestions. Actually, we get quite a lot of suggestions for paintings, some of which we've obviously followed through.
Yes. I've had a lot of people say things, which is quite nice.
But this period of the Baroque, I think people are a bit scared of the term Baroque, but it actually is it's a fascinating period, not least because of Caravaggio, of course.
Well, I'm really lucky because I'm not scared of any of it, because I didn't really know any of it until I met you, or not until I met you, until we started doing this. I wasn't really, did I? I mean, I think when I was at school, we learnt about trade unions and stuff like that.
Did you?
Yeah, I didn't do any history of art like this at all. So you kind of...
It's probably even less being taught now, sadly. I mean,
actually, I wonder.
Our current government was trying to end history of art as an A-level, which is what 17 and 18s do, for those of you not in the UK.
See, we did all Toll Puddle Martyrs and things like that. So we didn't really do any of it. It's funny, isn't it, when you think about it, what you learn. And then if you stop doing history, which is a bit of a shame, really, that you do stop doing history, but...
I think it's madness, because through a painting you can learn about history.
Well, especially, yes.
Someone was to say to me...
Especially when we did, with Napoleon.
But imagine someone was to say, OK, today's lesson is the papacy. Oh, my God, if somebody said, OK, we're going to look at this painting.
Yeah.
And by looking at this particular painting, Pope Innocent X, you could talk about how did he become Pope? How was a Pope voted? What were his powers? To what extent was he... Did he concentrate on the theological side of being Pope? And what extent did he concentrate on collecting taxes and enforcing his will? What role did art play? Where would this portrait have gone? Who'd have seen it? What was the relationship between a court and the court painter? How much freedom did Velázquez have in the court of Spain? Did he have to genuflect the whole time, or could he be quite chatty? We're having this conversation at the moment with Caravaggio. So we know that Caravaggio painted in the house of a particular guy called Del Monte. And people just assume that they would have had these conversations about art and about life and about this, that, and the other. But would they? I mean, he might have been working in the basement, and Del Monte might have been 3 floors up, and the two may never have...
I think it's actually a way better way of teaching history.
Yeah.
When we did that Death of Marat, which I didn't know, I mean, look at me then.
Exactly.
And we're going right back now.
French Revolution.
Exactly. And I don't really know anything about it.
In fact, all the paintings. So, Bridget Riley, swinging 60s.
Yes.
Gilda Pearl Earring, importance of maritime trade in the building of a country like Amsterdam, like the Netherlands.
And then we did Howard Hodgkin.
Hodgkin, the Empire.
Yeah.
British Empire. What a great way of looking at the British Empire with,
I think we're on to something here, Phil.
History through art.
History through art.
And the way in which we think we understand art through those paintings that have survived. I'll give you 2 examples. I may have mentioned this before. Forgive me if I have. We think of the Greeks and we think of those beautiful white sculptures, live human forms in white marble. Actually, their paintings, a lot of their kind of more down-to-earth art has simply disappeared. And even those statues like the Venus de Milo, which is now in the Louvre, would have been painted in a way that we think of as really garish, bright reds and bright blues. But it gets washed off, it disappears and the marble stays behind.
Yeah, and I did learn that from you. You did mention that before.
And the other one, which I have also mentioned.
But I like it that you did mention it because it reminds me of it now.
But the other one is, we imagine, it's still today, if you go to Rome, you will see by the Forum a statue of Augustus. Augustus is the first emperor. Mm-hmm. He's the adopted heir of Julius Caesar. And Augustus is the first emperor. He takes the name of his predecessor, Julius Caesar, so he calls himself Caesar. So then begins the reign of the Caesars. From the word Caesar, we get Tsar, we get Kaiser,
Right.
Anyway, you'll see this statue, and he's a really strong guy, and he's wearing a military breastplate, and his arms outstretched, and he's, looks strong and handsome, and it's fake. I mean, that's not what he looked like.
Oh.
According to the records, he was a short guy. He wore high heels to,
right.
make himself taller. He had bad teeth. He was... so it's all about image. And the thing was that nobody ever saw the emperor.
No.
So when the legions went out, they would take statues of the emperor and they'd plonk it in the main square.
Oh, okay.
You're not going to show an old guy.
No.
So he showed this... So... And then the obvious one, again, I know we've mentioned this with Napoleon.
Oh, yes.
You think of those images of Napoleon, you think of him on that steed crossing the Alps by David.
Mm.
Okay, actually, the reality was he crossed the Alps on donkey. And he was a small, frumpy bloke. So
we need, actually, then Velasquez to come along.
Art as propaganda.
Tell the truth.
Well, that's the thing about Velázquez, you see. He did tell the truth. So his court portraits from Madrid... from the Escorial, just outside Madrid, and then within Madrid itself, they are much more honest about. Of course, there's this big debate more recently, isn't there? It was Hockney's portrait of... Is it Hockney's portrait of the Queen?
Oh, yes. Yes.
People really weren't that impressed.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the portraits of the Queen, people are not that impressed.
No.
And probably the closer it gets to reality... the less impressed people are. People want it to be softened around the edge, and that she hasn't changed since 1953. And
but she must have approved that, though. Surely. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. I just would have assumed that someone, if you're the Queen, if you don't want it to go out, you're going to say, "I'm sorry, I don't like that." No. Well, maybe she's happy for her. Sometimes there's a photo of me and I just say, "Oh well, that's what you look like, isn't it?" And at the end of the day...
Well, you see what people who have pictures taken of them, or they take pictures of themselves, and they will swipe through and delete.
Exactly.
Delete. Oh, I can see my wrinkles, delete.
Yeah.
I mean, people want to present an image of themselves, which isn't always necessarily the same as reality.
No.
Certainly when I see pictures of me running in a race, and this is true of all my running friends, we look for the picture where both feet are off the floor, stomach's in, thighs are rippling. I mean, we're not dribbling.
Okay, so when I look at a picture of me with a glass of red wine in my hand, I hope that one eye's not closed.
Dribbling.
Thighs are rippling.
Thighs are rippling. We'll move
Come on now, Phil.
Well... That was,
so that is... So,
maybe if we were... I've never had a portrait. It'd be interesting. The other day, actually, just to conclude, I was in Rome, as I said, and there was a guy doing those, those touristy portraits. And actually, this guy was really good. And I did momentarily think, I wonder... for 10 euros or 20 euros, and I decided not to.
Oh, you should have done. Next time you go back, do it. And then we could do it as painting of the week. as a finale to the season.
No, we'll put it up for auction.
That's what we're doing.
And that's how you get to pay to go to Rome.
Yes, let's do it. The back
we'll
of
get two pictures made, 10 euros each, put them up for auction, 1,000 euros each. All right, let's work on that.
Okay.
Thank you. That was Painting of the Week. And apart from all the nonsense...
laughing and tea drinking. Thigh rippling.
Do have a look at this painting. Have a good look at look at it in detail. Take your time. It's fantastic. And if you've not looked, I'm sure many of you have, of course, but if you've not looked at the work of Velázquez before, then... staggering artist that influences a lot of people that follow.
Yes, and
thank you.
Stories.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website at seventh-art.com. or contact us by emailing info@seventh-art.com. See you next time.